a lot of times we roll out a tool. Even in our own organization, we standardized on Teams. Great. But there's a whole lot of change management that comes into rolling out Teams and de-standardizing communication away from email. And that change management isn't just training. People think sometimes change management is just training. It's not. It's the whole governance aspect around how does an organization adopt that cultural shift.
Your business's success depends on relationships. Relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Pontau. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from your experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Ryan Steil. Ryan is not your typical executive. A former senior leader at Deloitte and KPMG, he has built a career and now multiple companies around one simple idea: work should not suck. As the founder and CEO of Rhodium Digital and Silver Edge Systems, he helps organizations across North America and the UK rethink how enterprise technology, people, and purpose intersect. His journey spans everything from drilling rigs to boardrooms, rebuilding businesses and motorcycles alike. A pilot, builder, and strategist with a passion for enabling better workplaces, Ryan brings together grit, humor, and big picture thinking to lead teams that genuinely make work better for clients and their people. Congrats on enabling better workplaces, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thanks so much, Karl. Great to be with you today.
So I love that line about work should not suck, because I think so many companies have forgotten that if they want to get the bottom line they're all scrabbling for so desperately, taking care of their people, the employees, and making sure that their experience working there is good makes all that possible. So why do you think companies have forgotten that? How can they make work not suck again?
Oh, that's a big question. The latter part of how can they make it not suck? I think it comes down to the individual experience, though, right? If we go back to really where this foundation for us of work shouldn't suck comes from, we can all see it any day. You drive down any freeway, look around, and don't be a creeper in traffic, but look around and look at people's expressions. You know, they're not happy about being there. I mean, look at how excited people were to work remotely. And then the corporate environment not being able to handle it and saying, okay, everybody has to come back to the office. Not because there was metrics put in place to say, okay, we had better performance when people were in the office, but simply from a control factor. And it really didn't address why work's sucking for people. We get too focused as individuals on really just having an environment where we're losing ourselves in the process of earning a living. We forget why we became an engineer, why we became an architect, why we became a nurse or a teacher, and we're not doing the job that we were trained to do. We're spending our time on administration. We're spending our time solving problems that aren't really problems relative to our daily job. And so making work not suck is removing a lot of the barriers that limit us from doing what we wanted to do, what our passion is, and why we started going down that life path in the first place. That's the crux of it.
And so why is it the nature of work or what people are doing at work not in alignment with that anymore? Because it seems like they get hired to do that thing, or at least like that. It seems like the job title is related to that thing. So what is it about the way companies are structured or the way they treat their employees that diverts from that intended purpose of the job they got hired to do?
Yeah, again, a good question. Each company is a little bit different, and what's an impediment to that? And to being able to be your engineer or be your architect. We spend a lot of time working in the professional services industry, or I do, specifically with engineers and architects. But a lot of those teams in general, not just individuals, but teams as a whole, spend all their time really, I suppose they're chasing missing data. They're trying to navigate systems and processes like sending an invoice out there, just sitting in meetings that lack direction, maybe responding to internal noise that really doesn't have anything to do with their client outcome or their research. It's not just those efficiencies, it's inefficiencies, I should say. It's actually quite demoralizing. The number of times I sit with an executive and they say, I just spend my day going Teams meeting to Teams meeting, right? Pretty normal. Nobody signed up to be an architect or a scientist or anything just to spend their time wrestling around with internal meetings. So employees instead are managing workarounds. They're doing duplicate data entry. They're documenting things manually that could have been updated and automated 5, 10, 15 years ago even, because they're being asked to collaborate in tools that no one trained them for, right? So they're working around the work. They're not in the work. But in doing so, then they have meetings to have the meetings, as we used to say, right? And it's just not doing what they got into it to do. We spend the majority of our day, some of us spend 90+% just working on the systems inside our organizations, and not really thinking about how can we do this work better and how can we make it so I get back to doing what I love to do. That's what it is.
And so it sounds like some of the work you do there with your clients is helping kind of break out of these ruts they found themselves in. So what are some of the processes, or I guess the strategies and approaches you take to break this cycle of just like soul-sucking work environments?
I think looking for the opportunities for automation, of course. We've all seen the big onslaught of AI over the last couple of years, right? A few years ago, you could throw a stone and not find somebody that even knew what ChatGPT was, right? And now everyone's using a form of AI or natural language processing model. So of course we can employ utilities like that. I think it's really breaking down though, how does an organization operate? What culturally has been adopted in the way that they work that's creating a bit of a negative environment? And it's not Pizza Friday, right? It's not those acts of, okay, well, let's get everyone a gift for summer. Those are all really nice, right? Everyone likes to get something, but it really is, what is Sarah or Jim or Henry doing when they come into the office every morning? What is that experience? Why are they spending an hour and a half commuting to the office? Let's start there. Is that necessary every day of the week? So let's start there. And then let's look at how they're interacting every day. Do we communicate 90% through email? Could that be reduced to a Teams collaboration site? Has Teams been rolled out effectively, or Slack, or whatever tool you're using for quick communication? And then even then, how do you formulate and develop those tools so that they're efficient for everyone and everyone is on the same page? A lot of times we roll out a tool, even in our own organization, we standardized on Teams. Great. But there's a whole lot of change management that comes into rolling out Teams and de-standardizing communication away from email. And that change management isn't just training. People think sometimes change management is just training. It's not. It's the whole governance aspect around how does an organization adopt that cultural shift. And so it's really comes back to your question of refining the tools we use every day and giving people a screwdriver for a screw or a hammer for a nail as they need. They don't just have one tool for a job. And so it's really enabling them and then helping provide that guidance that they need to make their business more efficient and give them that time back. What we found, and just a little path on that, is that we need to enable people with time back so that they have the time to figure out how to focus on what they do best. So it's not just a one for one, it's actually an exponential return, but it does take time at the end of the day. That's it.
I mean, yeah, I think that's one of the key phrases that popped in my head early on when you were giving that explanation, was looking at the employee experience, understanding what their daily life is like in the company. And I think there's this overall lack of understanding of what people are actually doing or what they're actually experiencing and how to improve that. Or just also just a misalignment with what leadership or like the executives think should be done, the best way to do things versus what their teams need. Like they don't need the hour and a half commute if they're going to be working on a computer that could be done all like remotely and is over all like Slack or Teams or whatever. And so it's I think that's interesting how it's almost like from a marketing standpoint where you got to start from your audience's perspective to understand what is going to be what you need to do to make it the best for them. And it seems like the same thing's happening internally where there's certain policies or tools or like a decision made by leadership without really understanding their audience and their team and what their experience is like and what their real pain points are or what their real desires are. And then they wonder why people are like kind of quiet quitting or aren't nearly as effective or like things don't get done on time or people are stressed out. And it's like there's this disconnect between what the decision makers think should be done or what the best path is and what the people that they're saying to actually get the work done need to get that same result. And then there's this friction there. So I think it's there's a very interesting kind of parallel between those two situations of why like marketing doesn't work for the same reasons that internal policies aren't working, is because there's a lack of understanding of the other person involved.
Yeah. I suppose it's that other person involved is the key, right? I mean, a lot of us make decisions. Look at the most successful people on the planet. I mean, they're really following their passion, right? So they're good at something because they're able to follow that passion. Often we go get a job because we're just trying to survive. And so then you ask, well, how do we support those folks? What if we can open it up so that we can enable people to follow that passion, so that we eliminate these mundane tasks that just don't need to be done? And I think that's it. And if you go a little further with that, I mean, that's really what AI is promising, is to reduce and really resolve a lot of the mundane tasks that we do every day in business, as an example, that we just don't need to do. And so it's really opening it up for those people to focus in on what they're actually passionate about. Because if we, the belief is that if we can focus on that we're going to see incredible efficiency. You talked about what do the managers have people focused on, or what do they need? And one of the first things I do with groups is I ask why. So, we see a process, we see people doing that. I walked into the organization the other day, they have 10 people taking care of tax filing. So tax filing for different states. Why do you do that? Why do you have 10 people doing that job? It's great that people are employed, but I'm guarantee you not one of those individuals went to school and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on sales tax filing for my entire career for the state of Wisconsin. That's not what they did, right? They're accountants, sure, but that's not where their passion is. And that job, those 10 roles, they certainly can be augmented with some automation, with some tools that already exist, that have existed for 15 years. And so the question becomes, why do you have that set up that way? Why did you do that? Where could you focus a little bit better and get people doing what people do better?
Yeah, I think there's so much, and I agree that one of the big potential huge benefits of AI is automating and getting a lot of the busy work and the drudgery out of the way and freeing up people to do more of the human side of business that is often lacking in helping them build those relationships between clients and each other. And so but I think there's also one of the things I think that stands in the way of companies and like leadership understanding how to why being able to ask those questions or even looking at it from that perspective, just the overall structure of businesses is so based on 20th century industrial era thinking, very top down, very vertical, very hierarchical, and it's just
Agreed.
Not agile enough, and there's too many rows of people between the executives and the actual people doing the work. And so I think there's just this kind of antiquated structure to the business, which means a lot of the systems and processes they're using are very antiquated, and that the perspective difference between what the decision makers think should be done versus people actually doing the things
right
is so skewed. And so, it seems like getting an overall restructure of a business so that it's a lot more, horizontal, or not nearly as like of a tower, but there's more people on a similar level doing, be able to see things, and the more open lines of communication and a similar perspective makes the efficiency and effectiveness of the teams and the agility of the business overall a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just seems like there's part of what will make work not suck is companies just rethinking how they're structured from a foundational level.
Yeah. But it is something that builds over time, isn't it, Carl? So one of the other pieces I've been writing about is the duct tape management, right? And early in my career, it was just patch it and go. But if you look in a vast majority of organizations, it's let's fix it now and worry about it later. Let's fix our area and not worry about the repercussions for other teams. And that also builds it, right? We're not taking the time to really go through what caused this to happen. So asking why does it keep coming back? Why is it repeating? Why don't we have the right tools in place? What would those tools be? And how do we prevent this in the future? And then more importantly, how do we fix it for good? And if we look at the root as to what's driving that, is that we're all reporting on weekly timesheets, monthly financials, quarterly financials, trying to hit that year. And we're often lacking in the 1, 3, 5 year, let alone 25 year, but 1, 3, and 5 year strategic projections. What are we trying to achieve? A lot of times we look into an organization and we see mission, vision, and values. We'll see them on the website, and you go around and ask inside the organization, and it's a very small percentage that could recite what those values are, let alone align to them. And you kind of start to wonder, well, why does this company exist, right? What's causing it to go forward? And really, there's your answer, is that everyone's just trying to earn an income. So they're working to live. That's fine if that's what you want. But that's what's causing people to be frowning as they're driving down the freeway, to not being able to focus on their passion. And it seems very simplistic, but it is in that regard. Don't just patch things. Focus in on why they're happening so that you can fix it. And you can move on and you can focus on the things that matter. And that's where I think that's going. But
and so what if someone was, if like a owner of a company is like thinking, okay, maybe I have some of these challenges within my own organization. What are like besides, you think you mentioned a good first step of like asking why are you doing these things? What's like the step after the why is? How do you go about actually like fixing some of these problems if you realize the answer to why is not good enough for why you're currently doing something? How do you make those changes?
that's an awesome question. It's like, okay, we identified it, right? But did we identify what caused it to happen? And your solution comes out of asking those specific questions. Why is it happening? What caused it to happen? What's the root cause of it? Who does it impact? Are they going to repeat? Do we have the right tools in place? What tools exist in the market? Who can I talk to? Can I call Karl? Can I call Ryan? Can I talk to them? Can I get the answers? And then what could we do to make sure this doesn't happen in the future? And how can we fix it for good? And then the real question is, okay, if we figure out how to fix this, do we have the resources, budget, people, and so on to actually implement this change? And you may not right now. You may need to put it in the plan. But, somebody said, and it's a bit of a weird term, but eat the elephant one bite at a time. It's a big project sometimes. You need to take time and say, okay, I can't just fix this tomorrow. I need to look at this. You get a 20-year-old company, they spent 20 years developing these processes and solutions. You're not fixing it on Tuesday, right? It's going to take a year or so in some cases, or maybe longer to switch that culture. I mean, arguably, there's a number of experts in culture that say once a culture is established in an organization, it never will change. That's a little sad. I choose not to believe that. But I do believe that you can make those adjustments, but they will take time. And so how do you go about doing it? You list out what the root cause is. You list out what do we need to change. You look for experts in the area, and then you look at implementing it one step at a time. Everyone's familiar with weight loss or exercise, or, hey, I need to run a little bit, or I need to walk those extra steps. How many people bought Fitbits to get 10,000 steps a few years back? Now everyone's got their own personal device. Because we all know those incremental measurements can help us succeed, can help us achieve whatever goal it is we have. And I think that's the last part, is set those goals in place, measure them. Whether you call them rocks, whether they're OKRs, whether they're, just individual goals, whether they're just a note on a whiteboard, put them up there, put a timeline to them, and hold yourself accountable, and just look to achieve those. And looking to achieve something is not just like, okay, well, I'm going to go sailing one day. It's like, no, you need to buy a boat. That's a good start. And you need to learn how to sail. And so what am I going to do this week to learn how to sail? I'm going to take a course. And so it's taking those little incremental steps one at a time and just working on it. And it'll fall away faster than you can imagine, because it just happens. It just starts to naturally happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Ryan. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Ryan, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.
Thanks, Karl.